So I picked up this fake DS cartridge. Turns out it was a fake one. Here I am just trying to open it up, uh, using God mode just to get in and see if I can identify it and show to you how to identify fake flashcards. I'll have to make a video on this, but basically it just kept crashing my DSs. Before that, it was showing up as a fake STT clone. So my 3DS locked up here, and I just basically had to manually power it off because it just kept crashing. Anyway, let me just try to open up this cartridge and see what's inside. So I'm gonna get the iFixit Jimmy. It's quite a nice tool for this sort of job. And just look at this. You get it in the corner. And once you're in, just wait a second. You get in and bam. You basically cut along the seam because it's like welded plastic. And boom. Now I just need to basically use this opening to get all the way in. Or at least far enough just to be able to pry it open. I mean, this thing is gonna get destroyed either way. And here's the money shot. Look at this. It's definitely a fake. You don't get micro SD cards inside the fidget cards. Also, the plastic posts and the welded plastic just kind of keep it in place. But once I get it out, we're gonna see the insides. So it has a soldered in micro SD card, no slot on it, and what the heck is going on here, right? A bunch of test pads, and then they have a glove top and probably some RAM or something like that. So anyway, let me get the soldering iron going. Well, this is a version 1 Pine, so we have other hackerspace. So I have to be careful of the orientation. And yes, this is not a silicon cable. It really died the day I had to do this. And someone, of course, put the worst possible tip on it. You just gotta get like the right tool for the job. And let me just get some rosin and just see the power draw and everything. And let me just rotate it quickly. I'm gonna first desolder this whole SD card thingy. So I'm looking for the flux here. It should be here somewhere. And of course the wick as well. By the way, just a heads up, I actually just shot this on a tablet, but I basically cannot use the audio because there were conversations going and so on. So I'm gonna get some flux going here. And let's go to town on it. First I wanna desolder the SD card here. So I'm gonna heat up the pads just so it's, moving. There you go, it's out, and let me desolder the pads or the fingers. I tried this SD card afterwards. It was just completely dead. Nothing was showing up, so it's dead. You'll see later, even without this SD card, this thing is just showing no signs of life and just crashes any DS. At least doesn't show up if it's like a DS Lite. So I'm wrapping up my desoldering job over here. It's almost done. And let's move on to the next part. So I picked up some micro SD card slots here. Let me try to put one in and see what happens when I put in an SD card with a kernel that should work on this flashcart. I mean, spoiler alert, it's not gonna work. But I need to get one out and I need to solder it in. It's gonna be some fiddling. So let me cut out one of those SD card slots from the SMD tape thingy. I'm struggling a little bit with those flash cutters because, you know, they're not long enough to get to the slot. Let me break it off a little bit. It's a little bit jank, but you know, that's how I roll right now. I'm gonna get the thing lined up here now that I got it out of the tape. Looks like the pitch in between the pads is just about right. Although this slot seems to have an extra set of pins to show whether the SD card is plugged in. I had to look around a little bit for Captain tape, but here it is. I'm gonna basically use it to line up the SD card slot with the card and be able to solder it in, because this is basically, you know, SMD soldering, and I just basically need to line it up, and that's the hard part. The actual soldering isn't that hard if you have flux and a decent tip. It turns out that this micro SD card slot has these posts for alignment, which in this case have no holes to go into, so I need to basically use a flash cutter to get them down to be level with the PCB. And there we go. And now I can actually line it up properly. I'm getting the soldering iron ready again, and I'm gonna try to solder for the first time. I need some flux, obviously. That's how we do SMD soldering, or soldering in general. Not that I'm an expert on it or anything, I'm still learning, but still. There we go. Some flux. I need to get the solder out. Let me put a ball of it on the tip, because I'm basically just gonna be running it over the pins. Let me inspect it visually. Remove the excess. Again, sorry for having my head over it, but this is a really junky setup. So you actually can't see the action happening most of the time, but yeah, I'm using the desoldering wick here to get it out. Clean the tip again, especially considering I had excess solder on it. And I'm gonna inspect the results now. I actually desoldered because I didn't like the results. Let me line up again. So I'm going for a second alignment attempt. Let me get the SD card slot first and then put the captain on, because it's just the thing I have laying around to kind of keep it in place as I'm working on it. This is a fairly small and flat component, so you really can't hold it stable without something adhesive like that. And yeah, sorry again for the hair getting in the way, but you know, you can also see how messed up my hair is from all the years of stress. So it's the same procedure again. Get the flux on, get the soldering iron with some solder on it, and just run it across and basically have the flux do the hard work for me. We go. So now I'm gonna get the SD card that should have the right kernel that should run on this thing. I have a similar flash card that was actually with a slot, and it worked with this SD card and the kernel and everything I had on it. And now I have to figure out a way to put it in a DS. I'm gonna be using a junk DS light here that's black. It turned out to be a project I messed up quite a bit, but also in a somewhat rough shape. So I turned it into one for parts. I had recording for it, but the repair went so badly that I basically scrapped the whole project of turning it into a video. So I'm gonna spend some time cutting here and trying to get enough of an opening so the SD card doesn't make it too thick with the back cover on, because I basically need the whole thing to be thick enough to actually fit into a card slot. I'm gonna get a bigger knife here to just cut out enough of the plastic, because this plastic is quite flexible and malleable. I don't think it's as good as the shells of the original ones. Not that you want to open up, because the original original DS cards are big enough, are welded shut, and you cannot really get into them without destroying the shell. At this point, the best thing I can do is just wiggle out the plastic to get it off, because it's that flexible. You can't really just easily cut it, and you just kind of have to mess with it a little bit just to get it out. Quite annoying to work with. I mean, it's really thin plastic, but it's also just flexible, and it's a perfect combo to make any sort of work of this kind a nightmare. I mean, you're not really meant to do this with shells or fake shells for, commercial cards. But when you try to turn one into a flashcart just for the sake of it, you end up with something like this. And yeah, it fits down more or less almost. I need to just cut off a little bit more. But now that I have an opening like that, it's a little bit easier. Just a little bit easier. Yeah, looks good to me for now. Let me get some Kaplan just to hold everything in place and try to put it into the DS. So I got it trapped up to a point where I can attempt to put in a DS. Let me get out the trash DS I had back then, the one that I killed in repairs. I mean, it wasn't in a good shape. It had plenty of hardware issues that I had to fix up, and basically I just failed the repair attempt. And look at this, it doesn't get detected. So at this point I'm very certain that this isn't a matter of inserting and reinserting it, because sometimes that would make this flashcard work initially, because it was finicky even when I got it. But I'm gonna try now without an SD card in it. And look at this, it turns out that you can just kind of put it in there, and it's good enough. And money shot, guess what? It still doesn't get picked up. And that's basically it. That's the point at which I called it, because turns out that it is dead. It wasn't like the SD card causing physical issues or anything like that. So I didn't kill it. I got some soldering practice in, and I had the chance to look at a fake cartridge, and I also learned a little bit about spotting fake cartridges. Turns out that something like a 3DS or probably a DSi, although I don't have one to test that with, and God mode lets you test it. And here, just for comparison, let me get in a non-legit copy of Modern Warfare for DS, put it up, And look, it boots. Check this out. Licensed by Nintendo, and the game's actually running. Bam. So here I am just putting the result of my work in a bag for later, if I ever want to look into it again. But there's probably nothing else I can really do with it. This is just a fake cartridge, and yeah, it turns out that they are basically flashcart, and they just take a tiny SD card and slot it in.